I may be in church, I'm not really having a true relationship with Christ. And what I've come to understand is that there's kind of categories for people. There's these people that are called seekers. You hear about all the time. These are people who are kind of testing out, what it means to have a relationship with Jesus Christ, what it means to be a Christian, what it means to read the Bible. And then you also have the starters. How many people think they're starters? Starters in their faith. You've developed a relationship with Jesus Christ, but you're kind of trying to find your way. Maybe you joined the church for the first time. How many people have done that? Nobody? Are there any people who are returners, people who used to be in the church, but now kind of started going back because now they have a family? We got some returners. And then I put myself in this category called bench warmers. People who grew up in the church, who know some of the Bible stories, but really don't study it, and kind of just go through it every day. And hey, is there any bench warmers in here? Am I the only one? Okay. One of the things that we do here for the new people is that I may call you out. So if you're lying to me, I will call on you. But as I kind of thought about our place and the Breakthrough Project, one of the things I really wanted to do is find a story that would kind of speak to me. And I was talking to Ben, I said, one of the things I really want to do with this Bible study was create a safe environment that people could really talk about the Bible. If you had questions about it, there was no stupid question. If you didn't know anything about it, that's fine, because we're here to learn together. If there's some things that are going on with you, this is not a social group or a help session. What we're hoping to do is minister to each other and find kind of like, what does the Bible say to us, and what can we learn from it? And one story I just kept coming back over and over and over again was actually the story found in Matthew. If you have your paper, if you turn to the back of it. Can someone read it for me? Does everyone have one?
Immediately he made the disciples get into the boat and go on ahead to the other side, while he dismissed the crowds. And after he has dismissed the crowds, he went up to the mountain by himself to pray. When evening came, he was there alone. But by the time the boat, battered by the waves, was far from the land, for the wind was against them. And early in the morning he came walking toward them on the sea. But when the disciples saw him walking on the sea, they were terrified, saying, "It's a ghost." And they cried out in fear. But immediately Jesus spoke to them and said, "Take heart, it is I, do not be afraid." Peter answered him, "Lord, if it is you, command me to come to you on the water." He said, "Come." So Peter got out of the boat, started walking on the water, and came towards Jesus. But when he noticed a strong wind, he became frightened, and beginning to sink, he cried out, "Lord, save me." Jesus immediately reached out his hand and caught him, saying to him, "You of little faith, why did you doubt?" When they got into the boat, the wind ceased, and those in the boat worshipped him, saying, "Truly, you are the Son of God."
Now let me ask you this. You've heard this story before. How many people have heard this story before? Now for our biblical scholars over here, if we were having a real breakthrough circle, we would break down, I would ask questions. Is this story found anywhere else in the Bible? Go ahead, you can answer. Where else? It's found in Mark. And where else is it found? It's found in Mark 6, and where else? It's found in Mark 6. It's also found in John 6 as well. So when you get home, you can read the different versions of the story. Now, when you hear this story, does it mean anything to you? I mean, do you see yourself in the story? Does it mean anything to you? I mean, do you see yourself in the story? You see yourself in the story? And that's kind of what I struggled when I heard it. I saw myself in the story, because let me put this in context. Remember, right before this happens, two things has happened. At the beginning of chapter 14, one, Herod, what does he do? He kills John the Baptist. That's what happens at the beginning of the story. And then the famous story of Jesus taking the 3 loaves. He does that miracle. As soon as that happens, Jesus tells his disciples to get in the boat and go to the other side. So all these disciples, a great thing has happened. They've seen this miracle of God happens. And then as they go along, look what it says. He went up to the mountain by himself to pray. And how often have we heard Jesus steal away and go away to pray? Now, when you read John, John gives us a little insight here. John actually says that Jesus goes away to pray because he wants to get away from the other people, because the other people really want Jesus to be their new king. And one of the things I saw here is that so often in life, I struggle with people looking at me saying I should be one way. Like, Charles, I mean, you have a great job, a great corporate job. Why would you ever want to, like, go to seminary and be a preacher? Or I have people who say, if you want to be a preacher, you have to have this big, you got to leave this big corporate job. And one of the things I wanted to say to you is that sometimes you have to not worry about outside forces and what other people are saying or doing. So when I saw Jesus here, he steals himself away because he doesn't want to be influenced by these other people. And then when he goes a little further, it says, and early in the morning, he came walking towards them on the sea. Now, the Bible doesn't give you a clear understanding, but early in the morning, the time frame here is 3 to 6 in the morning. And what I found in my life is so often when everything seems to be going well, a great thing has happened. Like my children was born. I remember when my son Max was born. That probably should have been the most happy time in my life. But actually, that was probably the most stressful time in my life. Because at that point in time, I have to admit, if I could be truly transparent here, I was personally struggling with a lot of different situations. I was struggling with people at work. I was struggling in my own family life. I was struggling with my desire to continue with the ministry. I was struggling with friends that I thought had my back. But that I saw myself kind of in that story, 3 and 6 in the morning, when I thought everything was okay. All of a sudden, a storm comes. And I'm looking out here, and then all of a sudden I see, or I'm trying to see kind of where God is, where Jesus is in this thing. And as we read here, what does it say? But when the disciples saw him walking on the sea, they were terrified and saying, it is a ghost. Now, I don't know how you read it, but one of the things I kind of noticed is that the disciples who should have known him the best, they don't recognize him at this point. And isn't that how it works with our relationship with God? Is that things are happening in our life, like, you know, you wake up in the morning, you hear that all the time, and you have food on your table, you have a good home, and you say, God, my situation could be better. Or someone else is having a better situation. Why can't I have that? And so often we don't see the hand of God working in our lives. And even in that very stressful time, I have to admit, the hand of God was working in my life. Because at that moment in time, God kind of put me in a position to have this idea for the Breakthrough Project. So where I didn't see how my ministry could move forward, God was already working that situation out. When I didn't see people who could come and be a part of it, you know, 2 years ago we started with 5 people, and now look at where we are today. And this great day, God has been moving in this. And while other friends of mine have been ordained and going ahead and have their own church, and I'm still struggling through seminary and still struggling with work and balancing family, I have to admit, I called Jennifer about a week ago. I was driving back from Nashville, and I said, Jennifer, if I have to be honest, I'm done with this. I'm tired of this. I can't handle it. This is too hard. I can't make this work. And I kind of went back to this story because I could see myself in the middle of the storm. I could see, in some respects, I could see God trying to talk to me, but I didn't recognize him. And I had people calling me and encouraging me. Actually, I think I actually talked to Ken at one point, and he was encouraging me, but it just didn't matter. It just didn't register with me. And then as Peter went on, it says, and they cried out in fear, because that's what happens. When you can't figure it out on your own, or it seems unclear, usually we get a little fearful. But immediately Jesus spoke to them and said, take heart, for it is I. Jesus actually talks from a divine perspective. Do not be afraid. And look what Peter does. Peter answered him. Now, if you read Mark and John, you would notice that none of the other Gospels talk about Peter. Only Matthew highlights the fact that Peter was the one that hears Jesus' call. And what does Jesus say? Lord, if it is you, command me to come and walk on the water. Now, I'm not sure if you hear what he's saying. He says, Lord, if it is you, command me to come and walk on the water. And I saw myself in that story too, because when I took the job at Willis, one of the things